Hello.
Anya.
Hi. How are you? Oh my God. Neil, it doesn't even fit in the square anymore.
I know. It's like Santa.
It's extraordinary. Okay. Hi, Peter. How are you? Oh my God, and Tien. Hi. Okay, I think this is going to be a very small group. People have asked us to record it. So do you feel
Yeah, we can get started. Yeah.
Just
Because
start?
I'll just send it to everyone afterwards.
Okay. Was anyone on the last session? No? Oh, YT, you're a regular?
I am too.
Hi, Dawn. How are you? Hi. So we realized there might be a really simple way for us to first share the cliff notes of how to set up your course and things that you can decide to do that can carry through, and then we can get into the specifics. Oh, great. We have one more. Now there's a crowd. Okay. Yeah. I had a conversation with Jeffrey Toon yesterday, and he was like, how could you break this down into 4 easy steps? And I was like, actually, we can. This is not so difficult. It is about 4 easy steps. So everyone's getting ready to teach. And step 1, or someone's already teaching. Maybe you can tell us about it rather than us telling you about it. Okay, we'll circle back to this. But step 1 is you're going to need a platform. Like, where are you going to put all of your coursework, all of your stuff for students to access? So basically there are 2 hard-hitting, like heavyweight platforms that you can choose from. One is Canvas. Some people like Canvas because it's the preferred version of a platform for the University of Michigan. It connects really easily to your grading. It just connects to the system. Some people don't like it because it's a little bit cumbersome. So if you don't like it, another option for you is to use Google Classroom. So you choose between those 2. If you look at your list of students and you have a lot of students who are based in China, they will have a hard time using Google Classroom. And so that's your first choice, Canvas or Google Classroom. Those are essentially the best versions of a platform. Next, you need to be really confident with Zoom because this is the best way to communicate with your students. So if you can test ways to annotate on Zoom, to do breakout classrooms on Zoom, so that you can reconfigure the way your students talk to you in small clusters, test that with your friends in advance, become Zoom master. We haven't found that any other communication platform is better than Zoom. So we're sticking with Zoom. Even if you're Zoom bombed on occasion, it's worth the other tools that come with it. Then you need a co-design tool. So you need something where you can share your work on the screen and draw on it and communicate with it and drop things in while you're talking to your students. And we've essentially found that Miro, out of all of the platforms, is the one that our students enjoy the best. So we've used it. You can see your students as little flickering arrows. You can see them moving around your document. They can throw things into your document. Jacob has figured out a way for us to have the professional version of it for free as educators. So you can have as many of these Miro boards as you'd like for your class or for multiple classes. And it just keeps a log of everything that's happened in your class. And that's very, very useful. So those are all the tools you need to produce the synchronous teaching, or the stuff that you do live when you're communicating with your students. And then if you're planning to have some of your coursework be asynchronous, in other words, you've pre-recorded it, then you need an additional tool for capturing your pre-recorded material. The simplest one, Jacob, you've suggested, is to just use your PowerPoint as a way of capturing. But there are other tools that are on our website, carepackage.tools. that you can refer to capture or to have more sophisticated capturing capacities. So that's the bottom line of what can get us going. Did I skip anything, Jacob?
Nope. That
Okay.
makes, yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And that's a really good segue into the first thing that I want to talk about, which is our suggested software suite. So can you all, yeah, you can see this now? Okay, good. So our suggested software suite, I'm going to send this to everyone. I sent it before, but I'll just, as a reminder. So what you'll find here is basically a detailed version of what Anya just said, with like our suggested versus the options. So the suggested suite, Anya, as Anya said, Zoom, everybody knows it. For better or worse, it is, I mean, it's pretty robust and everybody is aware of how to use it at this point.
Could I throw one other pitch in for Zoom? It's
Yeah.
what our web developer and CMOK design team have been using to create rooms for every studio on CMOK, if that's something that you'd like to use. So basically, there will be a room assigned to your studio or your course where your students can just intuitively tap into a Zoom link that will be your standing Zoom room. But that is in development, and we're hoping to have that ready in the next 2 weeks.
Right. So yes, a learning management system. We're suggesting Google Classroom because it's nimble and it's useful in nimble times. In my opinion, this is what I'm going to be using for my class, and I've used it in previous semesters as well.
And again, beware if you have international students in your class, then turn to Canvas instead. It's more stable in China than Google Classroom.
Yes. And then the lecture capture PowerPoint is great. And I'll show in a bit more detail what that looks like. So this is a very didactic PDF. It's not meant to be condescending. It's meant to be thorough. So you'll first sort of watch these 4 videos that kind of very basically lay out how to use these softwares from ground zero. For the learning management system, the co-design tool Miro, the lecture capture PowerPoint, and we have a series of videos done by a recent graduate, Ishan Pal, who takes these softwares and curates a video based on the way one might use it for a design studio context. So rather than just, this is how you use the thing, this is how you might use the thing within an architecture school context. So we walk through how to use the Google Classroom. Won't bore you with this. You set up your class. This is how you can communicate with your class. This is how you add people, both teachers and students. There's various actions you can take, among them emailing individual students or the entire group. You can add coursework here, so I'll show a few things. Most often you're going to be adding material. So this includes things like syllabi, precedent lists, hyperlinks, etc. You can create topics, so kind of subcategories. As Anya was saying before, this is a really useful thing to do for your course, is setting up a dedicated Zoom room for your class. So what I will be doing, and I think it makes sense, is I'll be using either one that's provided by the university directly or my own personal meeting ID. And this is so that whenever you're meeting with students, you don't need to constantly be sending them new links. It's a dedicated room, so to speak. So that whenever you say, okay, we're meeting as a class, they just know that that's where it is. Then Miro integration. The the way that one might think about this, and Ishan Pal in those videos I was just mentioning discusses this, you can think about a Miro board as a student's desk. So each student would have their own Miro board, and they can sort of, from, you know, let's say it's a typical design studio, you start with precedence, you move into, you know, deeper and deeper into the design project. All of that content can be captured on the student's board, so that you're able to sort of mark progress and see your previous notes, and it's archived and it's logged. This is a really useful tool. So in a way, it's kind of more useful than a student's desk. And then what you can do is you can upload those into your Google Drive, or Classroom rather, so that your permanent Zoom room is linked there. And as is any number of Miro boards that you have. So rather than people having to search all over the place, it's in one consolidated location. Yeah, this is just showing kind of course syllabi. And in the same way, once you produce recorded presentations, you can also upload those there. So again, everything is funneling into the learning management system of Google Classroom to minimize the amount of, you know, places students have to go. This is your home base. It's also really accessible and it's mobile friendly. So, you know, obviously it's limited, but you can communicate with your class, with the stream section, etc. So you can look through this document in more depth, but I'll send this out to everyone. So I want to now go to the website itself, and just talk a bit about like how it operates and how we've designed it. But before I do that, I want to just give a brief shout out to an amazing software that actually is a result of a question from Ellie in the last section. I discovered. It's called Perusal. So for any of you who are working on, let's say like reading heavy courses, reading discussions, this I would highly recommend. Essentially what it is it's a communal, it's free, and it's a communal reading and discussion, remote discussion software. So just to give you a bit of an idea, you'll sign up, and then you create a course. So in my case, I'm teaching at a 3G Intro Studio. So I made a course, and what you can do is you can upload readings that all people who are involved or who are added to the course can see. So here's an example of a text, right? So rather than every student having their own individual PDF and then coming to class or the Zoom room and discussing it, the PDF is shared. And if possible, it's OCR scanned, meaning that you can, like a PDF that was scanned from a scanner the text will be translated into editable text, which is nice also. But just to give you an idea of how this works, if, you know, a few people are reading this text, or your class, let's say 10 people, Jacob Commercy and Testbot, both, which is me also, commented on this particular paragraph. Wow, this paragraph is incredible. It sure is. So you can start to kind of, have a more interactive reading experience with students. And there's also options for kind of machine learning grading option, where it's just based 1 through 3, and it evaluates the students' response, the sophistication of the response. Obviously it's a robot, so it's limited in some way, but it's found to be quite productive. So I would highly recommend this, especially in a remote setting. I think it's really helpful for that.
Jacob, a few questions have come up immediately. Always good ones. How does this integrate with Canvas, if at all?
It does integrate. So this is a pro for Canvas. It integrates directly into Canvas. I don't use Canvas, so I don't know what that exactly looks like, but it does integrate directly into Canvas. And yeah, not Google Classroom. But again, a pro for Google Classroom is that you can easily add this link to the earlier home base section I was talking about. So you just click it and you're here. So I wouldn't let that discourage you. But like if you're grading students in Canvas, the grades that come from this will integrate directly into the other grades and be input into the grade book. So if grading is like heavy in the course you're teaching, then probably Canvas is a good idea.
There's another question, always the difficult ones here. How does copyright work with Perusal? This is a question for the company. Yeah.
That's a great question. I don't know. I know that that content is protected in Google Classroom. I looked that up for the last one, but I'll make a note to check on Perusal when you upload information, how that works, and I'll make sure to include that in the follow-up email.
I can just add a little more context. I'm new to Michigan, but both of my previous universities, the libraries have specifically asked us to not just upload PDFs because you're sharing copyrighted material. And I saw Perusal, I think it was through one of the emails, and that was actually a question of mine because it looked like it required people to upload PDFs as being shown right now. And that I wasn't sure how it works with copyright, because technically we would be in violation, I guess, of sharing copyrighted material. I'm not a copyright lawyer, but I've just seen a couple universities give me flags in setting up course material. So that's just been a perpetual question of mine.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I know that, so again, I'll look at that. Perusal has a database that of like, textbook, selected book from 200,000 plus titles in our catalog, or you can add a web page. So it seems like it will be a problem potentially, because otherwise I don't know why they would have this. You probably also need to pay for this, but anyway, I'll look into this question because it's a really important one and a good one. But either way, have a look, because I think it's a really amazing way of engaging with students that isn't solitary, which is important right now. So we've gone over the suggested suite and we've gone over Perusal. So I just want to quickly go through the way that this care package website is structured. And then, please, any questions, because they're really helpful in developing this website as well. So essentially, it's broken up into 5 categories with also a Q&A section. So I'll start with communication platforms. So if you can click and drag this thing around, if you click the object, then it'll bring you into this section of essentially learning management systems or like quick chat systems. So Google Classroom, I just discussed it. We didn't add it to the suggested suite because we didn't want to overcomplicate things, but I would highly recommend you have some sort of less formal means of communication, if not for you and your students, at least for your students, because there's a benefit to having layered forms of communication, especially when remote. And this is much less formal, and it kind of replaces endless amounts of emails. Discord is another, it's an alternative to Slack that has pros and cons, or benefits and drawbacks. Zoom, obviously we all know. Canvas, we all know. So these videos will just essentially explain how to use what they are and how to use them, should you be interested. And then these are just sort of like notes for what the thing is generally. Co-design tools, all of these pages are structured in the same way. So we've discussed Miro, and then right below each co-design tool are these videos that Ishan Pal as I described, kind of breaks down in an architectural studio context. So this is the how to use the thing, and then this is how one might implement it in a design studio context. These are different digital whiteboards ranked by our totally subjective evaluations. There's different kind of, say, more experimental means of engaging students in 3D, VR, etc. More whiteboards, Morpholio Trace for, system studio is probably really useful because it's more technical and it has more options in terms of, annotating and redlining and things like this. And then I just told you about Perusal as well. I just added that. Lecture capture, same deal. So there's something that I should note also is part of this text has whether or not it's free, which obviously is important. If there's a software you're dying to use, but it's not, email me and we can try and figure something out, but these are good and they're free. Kaltura is a really, really robust means of screen capturing. So if you want to be super pro, this is probably what you want to do. But more often than not, using something like QuickTime or PowerPoint will totally do the job. We'd recommend the proper, like camera and microphone for better quality, but these are more than good enough to do. Right, lecture capture. Then we have U of M online teaching resources. So as you know or could imagine, there are plenty. As a result of post-pandemic, everybody's trying to figure this out. So this runs the gamut of everything from like basic tips that come oftentimes from Center for Academic Innovation to more specific things you might incorporate into your course. So something like video conferencing etiquette, for instance. We've put together this mildly tyrannical document that describes the way, it's not loading right now, but describes the way that you might ask students to, like, best practices for etiquette on Zoom chat. It will hopefully open for you. But things like this that you might consider incorporating into your syllabus or speaking to your students about at the beginning of the class, just to set the ground rules. There's a really useful document that we got from the Center for Academic Innovation, which details the way or the hardware you might consider purchasing or asking me about to purchase potentially. No promises, but we'll do our best. To, like I was saying before, for screen capturing with PowerPoint, you might want a better microphone than the one that's embedded into your computer. So this gives you a price range, the equipment itself, and like a generic typology of what it is. So I would encourage you to kind of browse through this. All of these, there's a lot. And then finally, we have an inspiration tab, which comes from John McMurrow's seminar that he taught last semester, pre-pandemic actually, which is prophetic, which deals with the ways in which people have engaged with online instruction. And so he delivered a series of precedents to his students that ran the gamut from TED to, like humorous things like Adult Swim's Joe Pera Talks With You series. And he asked students to analyze them and then create their own instructional videos that taught the viewers how the instructional videos they were analyzing worked. So this is kind of meta seminar, but we have both the precedent and then the case study by students, and they're great. So they're fun and kind of light. So I would encourage you to check these out as well. Yeah, so this is kind of, yeah, we just wanted to run through how the care package works. If you have any questions, or, you know, want any advice, please feel free to ask, or email me afterwards. I'm happy to look into things like copyright and things like this.
I imagine there are things that the students need to do on their side. For example, they would be responsible for setting up their own VPN accounts if they're international students. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Are there other things that they need to do in advance to get us up and rolling? Is the school providing them with a list of things they should do?
So on the China end of things, yes. We're in communication with Autumn Zhao about, you know, both software that works best or works at all in China. And there's a direct line of communication with all Chinese students that are incoming or in China and not coming back to the States for at least the semester. So that is being covered, yes. In terms of students in the States, I would have to think about what they would need to do to prepare. I think, you know, learning how to use, what I would suggest is once you develop a suite of software that you're going to work with for the semester, I would deliver that to the students sooner than later so they can familiarize themselves prior to when the class starts. So you're not doing tutorials at the same time as trying to teach. But other than that, yeah, in terms of the China situation is more immediately urgent, but that's definitely being taken care of as best as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have one more point, I recall Malcolm McCullough at a faculty meeting saying that once we put things in the ether, they never disappear. They're always there. Mm. And because some studios and some classwork involves politically contentious issues, what assurances of privacy do students and faculty have in discussing these politically contentious issues? I mean, I focus on urban design, and cities are political. And there are many embarrassing things in history and controversies in history that, frankly, people may be shy about discussing if they are captured permanently or are accessible to others.
Yeah, so that's a great point.
And I'm not just speaking about internationally, because as we see in this country, we're at the edge of an authoritarian regime. So, you know, and these characters are after the universities. Mm-hmm. So what assurances of protection do both students and faculty have in these systems that are being provided?
Yeah, I think that's the blunt answer is it's actually on a software by software basis. Mm-hmm. So for instance, when you have a Zoom call, it's not being recorded. It's not being recorded, period. If you have a Miro board, that's protected. And there's sort of like protocols that are associated with this. It's protected as long as you go through the proper protocols to do so. It's not a single answer. It just totally depends on the thing that you're
No, I think, Roy, you're bringing up something very important, which, but is also something that that we must address in the real world besides the virtual world. And I think it works in much the same way. There's nothing that will prevent a student from recording any session with something adjacent to the screen. And so, but that can happen in a classroom as well.
Mhm.
So I think right now the university is working on creating language for us to insert into our syllabi in order to protect our intellectual rights, to create a culture of inclusivity and understanding. And it's a work in progress document. So it's something that we all as a faculty can contribute to in terms of clearly articulating that the intellectual discourse and the collective discussion is a safe space for everyone to participate in and cannot be disseminated. Or however else you think it would be important for us to name the rules of the game because they haven't been drafted before. And I can share, I know McLean shared a link to that document, but we can share that again with everyone to make sure that we're all inputting what we think is most important into our collective preparation for next semester.
Is that that's the syllabi so-called boilerplate?
Yes.
As I scanned it, I didn't see matters of privacy addressed or confidentiality addressed.
It's a very bare bones beginning that was issued through the University of Michigan from the provost's office. But it's up to us to craft it as a college in something that we believe is appropriate to what we do.
So the college will add language to that?
Yes, and we're encouraged as a faculty to craft that as much as possible to what is appropriate to us.
Related to this, if we record lectures and presentations, what protects those from penetration by third parties?
So again, once you create asynchronous material and you place it on a platform, whether that's Canvas, which is then protected through the University of Michigan's rule set, or Google Classroom, which I know less about from a legal perspective.
It's protected as well.
It's also protected.
Yes.
So once you create that material, it's where it resides that opens it up for dissemination or protects it from
I mean, but
yeah.
Like, to be frank, also, it's kind of the Wild West in terms of it being quite easy to like, I mean, it's a shitty reality, but it's very easy for these things to be disseminated. And this is, there are legal protections in terms of, like, if you upload content on the Google Classroom, legally it is not owned by Google. I think Facebook is different, but Google, yes. Canvas, yes.
But yeah, well, we have faculty that have made the decision not to produce any asynchronous material for next year.
And we're free to do that because
because this is not a MOOC.
Encouraged to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing that says we need asynchronous material.
Yeah, I would encourage that if you're concerned about these issues, for sure. Because I mean, there are protections, but it's, if somebody wants to get your material out there, it's not the most difficult thing in the world to do.
But yeah, absolutely. But for example, for art prep, if we're producing lots of early education videos, we think of those as copy left, and we hope they're disseminated widely, and we're delighted if they're lifted, because it just sort of helps other students get excited about early education. So it depends on what you're teaching and what your political position is.
Right, if it's like vulnerable statements from students, or if it's IP issues, things like this.
Thank you.
That's a great question. It's tricky.
One of the things that came up this summer, I have produced asynchronous material. And Roy, to your concern, it took all of about a week before I came to realize that, oh, someone's mother has also seen it, like it was shared with someone outside the class. However, one of the things that I am trying to do is be sure I'm going through Canvas and they can only access with a UMich address, because I was getting all these permissions to access the content. It's like, no, if you're not coming through a UMich address, it will not let you in. And I'm just praying that the UMich address has some sort of coverage. But I also realized that because it could get out really quickly, I just start out every lecture by saying, all of this is a lie, right? Nothing is true. Here we go. Just as a, because I do tell stories in my class and they are not always on the up and up because I'm trying to introduce a provocation. And if that gets out and comes back, I could be crucified in a few years or 10 minutes. So I just wanted to sort of admit that, hey, this is a teaching situation.
Caveat can be easily edited out, Neil.
Yes, totally. It's like vulnerable. So my response to your question is, what assurances do we have? Is none.
None.
That's the bottom line. I mean, I think that's right. I don't want to bullshit you. I think that's right.
As far as, just to follow up on students being prepared, as far as Wi-Fi hotspots for connectivity, as far as access to programs that maybe they can't afford, basic programs that we use like Rhino, what is out there? Will they get as part of this prep package and those like really basic instructions in terms of hardware and software?
I could, yeah, Jacob? Or
No, go ahead, Anya.
I can speak to the hardware question. In the past, we have not had any requirements for students coming in. We've had some suggestions, some loose suggestions of a laptop configuration they might benefit from because we had access to the Duderstadt and to our own facilities. Now, for the first time, Bill is rolling out a recommendation of what kind of machine they should have in order to be able to work from home. Of course, that doesn't run the gamut of what's necessary based on the kind of courses they're taking. So it's just a baseline suggestion. Mm-hmm. We're also working with Earl to have a contingency fund for students that simply cannot afford it or need hotspots or need additional help. Now, because of our fiscal situation this year, we are counting on faculty to ask their students those intimate questions about need and communicate those back to us so that we can figure out how to tap that fund. So rather than when we sent, Bill was preparing to send like a very generalized survey for students to talk about what their technological needs might be. Mm-hmm. Our experience has been that students sometimes don't respond to those in the most forthright way, whether that's embarrassment or, social burden or whatever that is that's keeping them from responding. So we're going to ask our faculty to communicate with their students and find out what those needs are, and then for us to be able to respond as quickly as possible.
And that will be announced in one of the the faculty meeting that launched the fall semester.
Yeah, right now we're in conversation. Like for example, you've received a communication about whether or not you need an iPad, for example. And so there was some funding set aside for those co-design tools. It turns out that our needs as a faculty are double what was budgeted to support the purchase of those co-design tools. So we're trying to figure out, again, working with Earl, where we can find additional support and funding for all of us to be able to draw live in our studios. So it's a constant back and forth.
Okay.
But we're hoping to get that settled in the next few weeks so that we have a clear message that can go out to your students, to our students, so that we can assess need and have at least, a few weeks to be able to make those purchases and get the equipment to them when they need it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to emphasize what Anya is saying, because we heard this in early discussions with faculty this summer. We heard about these situations where faculty didn't find out until very, very late in the semester that they were ill-equipped to do the work, technologically ill-equipped to do the work that they were being asked to do. So I would encourage everyone who's teaching to be very transparent about this as soon as as soon as the class starts, if you need something, please let us know, and we can kind of nip it in the bud, rather than, yeah, like this kind of late situation.
Getting that information, I'll reinforce what you and Anya are saying, is very difficult, because my group was one of the group that I didn't find out until very late. They were ill-equipped, and I was very surprised. And so making sure there's an even playing ground for education is tricky. So figuring out ways of engaging the students so that we can get that information as soon as possible is going to be the trick. And I haven't wrapped my head around that just yet.
So in our experience, students are weary of doing cold-hearted surveys to describe need. Also, when they first meet their instructors, they're also weary of telling them about need. If anyone on this call, and we'll turn to faculty more broadly, if you have ideas about how we can do an assessment, whether you think that maybe student affairs can do this by reaching out directly to groups of students, or if you have some other ideas of a more direct format that can be used, we can't wrap our heads around this one either.
I mean, initial thought that, and it's very different than the student affairs direct taking care of it, but would be one-on-one introductory conversations that you have with the students when you start. Because again, when I found out, these were seasoned students. These were tiers at final review in Wallenberg Competition Studio. So maybe it is student affairs. We should maybe try both. But I was thinking one-on-one conversations, introductory conversations with students, which takes time, but may be worth it.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
It's definitely worth it. Yeah.
Yes, and the other option is if instructors feel that they don't want to touch on these sensitive points about access, economy, class, and they want a generic person or someone outside of their studio from, say, the academic initiatives team to do that for them, we're open to doing those interviews and conversations so that there isn't a sense that your instructor knows something about your private life that you don't want them to know.
Right, right.
Yeah. You can't do any of this without internet. It's like,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And it's also very difficult for us to know need because we don't know how many students are going to, how many faculty members and how many students are going to be willing to teach in person in this hybrid format. We don't know at what point we might fluctuate into an all online experience for everyone, regardless of what good planning and good initiative we all had in mind. The chances of us fluctuating into an all online experience at this point are very high as well. So that there are many unknowns in terms of need that can suddenly arise. And so that's why we're really pushing for a contingency plan, because we might suddenly have a new exorbitant need a couple of weeks into this experiment.
Okay, another question that has to do with informing the students. Will the technology end of this be part of their orientation? So it's not just a document that they get and they're expected to move through, but could that be something where, and Bill Manspeaker has done this in the summer transfer courses before, where he comes in and it's a few hours, but it's worth it because then there are not as many issues as one might have in the middle of, or at the end of the semester they're much more realized in crisis than they need to be. So if I could recommend that, if it's not already in place.
Yeah, it's a great recommendation, Dawn. The orientation is currently constructed out of 13 online modules. We'll check whether Bill's typical orientation is one of those modules, and if it's not, it'll be the 14th. It makes a lot of sense. The 13 are already online, so they're live. And student affairs is welcome to add additional orientation modules that students can access at any time.
Are faculty able to access that so we're aware of what they're being oriented to or not?
I think it's open source, but I'll check.
Great.
Okay, well, if nobody has anything else for now, again, please email me. The questions I've been getting from staff and faculty have been amazing and really helpful for everyone. So please don't hesitate to do so. Yeah.
But before we go, I recorded my lectures this summer using Zoom. Like I had a PowerPoint and I would screen share and then just talk over it. But I used it because it had the conversion at the bottom where it would translate what I was saying into text, so that people in different countries that maybe don't understand my odd dialect had at least half a chance at reading what I was saying. And so I just wasn't sure if there was anything related to Zoom that maybe made that a bad idea. Because I avoided, PowerPoint direct recording or Kaltura. I just went straight through Zoom because they were already on it.
I see. You're asking, is there a problem with doing that versus PowerPoint?
Yeah, or any copyrights or anything that seems odd. It's just, like, I tried to keep it super simple, so they just had to know Zoom, and we did everything through Zoom.
Yeah, no, that makes sense in a kind of efficiency way. I'll look also about sharing screen and content over Zoom and then recording. This is another copyright question. Yeah, maybe I'll put together just a document that has at the very least, the ones in this recommended software suite, how those jive with copyright issues, because these are obviously important.
Not to overcomplicate things, but the Center for Disability Studies has been looking into this recording transcripts that come from audio recordings. So there might be some add-ons that I remember from spring semester when Robert and I taught that might be out there that I can check in. I can check and contact a particular student, Jacob, and send him your way, or these links your way.
That would be great. Please do. Great. Okay. Well, thanks to the 11 of you who showed up. This is awesome. I'll send out this recording as well as the suggested suite, and I'll do some work on the copyright stuff as well. And when I have something of note, I will send it along.
And one more call for engagement. I know we've asked for questions about using the tools that we've suggested. If there's a particular way that you're looking to teach online and you're not even sure what the tool is, but you know what you want it to do, just reach out to us. It's very helpful for us to conduct research and to find those necessary tools based on how you imagine teaching. Sorry.
Yeah, Perusal came as a result of that. Yeah. I know some knew that, but somebody was like, I would love to have a tool where we could all read together and annotate, and we found one. Yeah. So basically it probably exists if
So you're willing to give a one-on-one consultation once we have our minds around the manner of our work for the coming semester?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'll be frank, I just want to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, for sure.
Yeah.
Anya, are you sitting in front of a Gauguin? What are you sitting in front of?
No, it's a Rousseau. So when I'm in a bad mood, I just lean over and you get that.
Sweet.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Thank you so much. It's really helpful.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for all of your feedback. It's really important for us to get this right. Really appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.